Consider this a bonus episode. My mother almost never asks anything of me, and this morning she asked if I would remind her of some of the details on the house that we built on stilts out in Castleberry Road. And so this is going to come from a couple of diary entries that have already been posted, but it's just for the purpose of relaying what I can remember, which some of it was not recorded, so I'll do that as well. So on June 6, 1974, my diary says, I was attending Florida College Academy, but by now we had moved to 406 Duquay Road in Lutz, Florida, from August the 8th of 1973 to January 6th of 1975. It was a nice house with an underground pool, with an in-ground pool. I wrote unground here. Don't know how I missed that the first time around. And we had 3 new cars in the garage, a Lincoln Continental, a Volkswagen Bug limited edition, and a Volkswagen Thing. When Lamont Homes merged with Schimberg Homes, my dad lost his contract for all of the lawn care, and fearing he could not afford all of the luxury, he sold the house and we moved in with his parents on Castleberry Road briefly before building the Stilt house on the family 10 acres, and then later moving to West Virginia to fly for Governor Arch Moore again. And then if you go to the next entry where I mention it, this is June 6, 1976. The highlight of my year was that our house at 11, and I'm not going to give the whole address, Castleberry Road, Odessa, Florida, was completed. I said our new house was finished in June. I feel like a bird being up this high. The house was built on stilts, and we built it ourselves. I had learned how to roof, hang drywall, and do all manner of building skills. And then it goes on to talk about more about that year. So what I remember about this was, I don't know where my father got the plans for it, but it kind of looked like one of the, what was that guy's name? Jim Walker, maybe? Had started building these houses up on stilts, which is a really good idea in Florida, because when you have hurricanes and floods and stuff like that, having all of your possessions up out of the floodwaters is a great idea. So Dad decided he wanted to build, and Mom too, I'm guessing, wanted to build this house up on stilts. And so we had these 12-inch, I think they were 12-inch by 12-inch posts that were rough cut wood. And that was the first part of this. We're going to build what's that? It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house up on stilts. So it was probably about somewhere between 1,100, 1,200 square feet. Had to have a really good basis. And so digging these humongous holes to put these posts in, and then it would take the whole family, trying to lift that thing up and down into the hole, and then getting those all perfectly square, which my father was crazy meticulous about things being perfectly in square, and getting all of that done. One of the things we found out later, which I thought was so interesting because I didn't know this about wood, but we had to dig out one of the poles for some reason or another, and it had actually started rooting again. So that thing was really connected to the ground. And then the next step was to build the floor of the house, which is up above your head. And so that was a massive undertaking with lots of learning how to saw and screw guns and all of that kind of work. And then on top of that, we built the frame of the house. And in building, it was a wooden house, obviously. And so in learning how to do all of that, it was more carpentry skills, more nail guns and screw guns and all kinds of tools to build that. And then once we had the finished, and then we had to do the roof. And that, I remember the roof, because now you're 2 stories up and putting this roof on there, and it was an angled roof. And so being up there and trying to do the shingles on the roof, I can remember at one point I had gotten too close to the corner of the house and ended up falling off of the roof, fell 2 stories, landed in the sand. Thankfully, the sand was pretty forgiving. I didn't break any bones or anything, and had to get right back up there and keep doing it because, once you got your shell built, you got to get the roof up before the rains come, and it rains here all the time. So that was a really, one of those manic moves to get the roof all done. And then once that's done, we had to do the inside. So we had to learn how to do things like sheetrock and how to cut it and tape it and plaster it with mud and make it look textured and then paint all of that, and how to hang light fixtures and tiling bathrooms and laying carpet, all of that kind of stuff we were doing ourselves. And so I remember it being such a huge family project, for like just one piece of sheetrock on the ceiling. You've got four of us working on it trying to do that. Well, there's like four corners to the sheetrock. Somebody's got to be up there actually screwing it down, holding it down, while the rest of us are trying to hold it up. And sometimes you can't reach that high, so you're like holding it with sticks. And so we'd have other sticks that would be holding up the roof. So by the time we finished that house, it was such a huge feeling of accomplishment that we had done that together. And I think there were some things, I'm sure there were some things that we hired out, like the electric and the plumbing. I'm sure we had to hire people that came out and did those things for us, because we would not have known how to do that, I don't think. I'm pretty sure my father was, well, I can pretty much tell you my father was not an electrician, because I can remember at the house one door down where his parents lived. This 10-acre tract was originally owned by his parents, and then they cut it into 4 plots for the 4 different kids. And so on the plot that they kept, they were still living, or it was for one of their sons who lived down in Miami, but they were still living there, and there was some kind of an electrical problem, and I forget what it was tied to, maybe the water heater. Anyway, my father and I go out there and we're going to fix this thing, right? And so I'm not really so helpful, but he's fiddling around with it, and I'm standing right behind him, and he got hit with a jolt of electricity that just bowled us both over. And once we picked ourselves up from that, we were laughing our heads off. But he was not an electrician, so I'm sure they had to hire somebody to come in and do that kind of work for us. But still, it felt like, it was such a family project, and we just loved it so much, and we thought we would live there forever, because you always think that when you build a house. But kids grow up and families move, and so it ended up in the hands of his brother, who then ended up losing it, which was a shame. But it was probably one of the most amazing things that our family ever did together.